Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Eva Melton Show. I'm Eva Melton, and I'm so excited that you're joining me tonight. So go ahead and do me a favor and share this stream with a friend. Tonight, we've invited back Danna Melton, who was our guest on last month. And she shared some really good information about her book and her work as a licensed professional counselor and a play therapist. Danna, how are you doing?
I am doing awesome, Eva. Thank you for having me back.
I'm so glad to have you back. We've got really good feedback on our last show. And I thought about with school starting that you would have some great information. And so, if there are any parents or caregivers on the stream, if you have questions tonight from Danna, she is a licensed professional counselor. So if you have any questions about the social and emotional development of our kids and preparing them for school as a parent, go ahead and type them in the chat, and we promise to get them answered before this stream is over. And so, Danna, what I wanted to do tonight, when you were on last week, a few weeks ago, you talked about being a licensed professional counselor. And I believe that many of our listeners know what that means, but you're also a registered play therapist. And I want you to take a moment to just talk about what that means and how that blends into your work as a licensed professional counselor.
Yeah, sure. A registered play therapist is what we would call kind of a specialty in working with children. So, play therapy in general is for children between the ages of 3 and 12. And so that means I've done a lot of work in learning how. To kind of decipher what kids are feeling through their play. Play is a natural tool for children. And so through their play,
Looks like we're having some connectivity issues with Danna. Let's give her a minute to come back in. And until she comes back, we're going to play the promo again. But while you're there, go ahead and share this stream with a friend. Looks like we have Danna back.
I'm back.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my goodness, what happened?
it's okay.
With play therapy, again, it helps children also with their growth and their development, social emotional skills, as well as help them heal from trauma. And so I do a lot of work. An example of that would be a couple of years ago, I had a kid, a very young kid, around he was about 3, almost 4 years old, and he came in and went straight to the house. And so play therapy is a room full of toys. Um, and he came in, he went straight to the house. He took everything out the house. He lined it up in front of the house, and he put all the people back inside the house. Later on, after talking to mom, I found out that the family had been evicted. And so he showed me through his play what had happened to him. Something was going on with the family, and played it out very clearly. And so these are some things that I see in the therapy room.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. And also, before we get going, I want you to just talk a little bit about Purdue Counseling and Consulting, how that was birthed, and how folks can get in touch with you. Believe it or not, many people listen to the first 5 minutes of a video, and I want to make sure that they know how to get in contact with you.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so Purdue Counseling and Consulting was created to help families heal, specifically from intergenerational trauma. We have trauma that dates back to our grandparents, our great grandparents, and it's passed down through the relationships. And so I created Purdue Counseling to help these families heal. I see children as well as teens and adults and families. And my contact information, you can give me a call at 205-675-0529. I also have a website. You can look me up. It's under Purdue Counseling. And I'm going to, in the process of starting some new groups, some parent groups, some reparenting groups, and we'll talk a little bit about reparenting. So that the adults can really deal with their issues when working with trying to work with their children.
I love it. I love the concept of reparenting, reparenting. A lot of times people think that, you get to a certain age that you're just kind of set in your ways, right? But I
Right.
love the thought that therapy can help you learn new techniques, learn
Hmm.
new ways of working with your kids. And so tonight, what I really wanted to focus on tonight, school's about to start. I was
Right.
talking to my worship leader last night. She is a teacher in Tuscaloosa, and she's going back into the classroom as a teacher on tomorrow.
Hmm.
Um, and so there's a lot of emphasis on school supplies. There's been a lot of back to school drives, school supplies, book bags, school clothes. We've had the tax-free weekend,
Right.
and all of that is great. Our kids need school supplies, right? We need them to have what they need to learn and to be successful in the classroom. But one of the things a lot of times we can forget about, or I wanted to really highlight on tonight, was about the social and emotional development of our children. And so, what I wanted to talk about and just kind of lift up to just get some tips from you as a therapist is that what are some things that our parents can be doing to proactively prepare themselves to ease the stress and help their kids to adjust with this new fall semester starting?
Right. So, I think when we're looking at the parents specifically, they're gonna have to take care of their needs. Um, that's one of the biggest things that I don't think parents understand. We can't pour from an empty cup. There's just like no way to do that. And so, my thing is, you have to do your own work. You can't really help your kids if you're frustrated and you're acting out, because we do that as parents. I'm a parent as well. I have a 22-year-old and a 9-year-old, and that can be challenging at times. But we all have work that we have to do, and so I would suggest counseling if needed. Um, the way we were brought up in generations in the past, there's a lot of shame that's kind of passed down, and there's a lot of guilt tripping. And so in that, what happens is that we parent according to how we were parented, but we also parent ourselves in that way. So we'll guilt trip ourselves, am I a good parent? Or we'll shame ourselves, I shouldn't, I should know better than that, instead of showing some mercy and some grace. When you can show yourself some mercy and some grace, you're able to show your kids mercy and grace. And so, but that's going to take, again, some reparenting, because your parents probably did the guilt tripping and the shaming. So that would be one thing, taking care of their needs, their basic needs: water, sleeping. Make sure you're getting enough of sleep. For me, if I don't get my coffee in the morning, you may not want to talk with me. And sometimes if I don't get a nap, I'm no good either. And so we have to get our needs, just our basic needs met, to be able to articulate what we need to with our kids, kind of that back and forth. It's called serve and return. And so that's when the kid come at you with something. And so they want you to come back, with a return. But sometimes, I can't do that right now. And so, in order to do that, we have to get our needs met, and taking care of our needs, and know when to say when. Right? It's okay to say no. Like I can't do something, do this right now. Even at work, if they want you to take a new project and you just know you can't do it. And so we have to be mindful of all those things as parents, because we have to be I ain't gonna say 100%, but we have to have a kind of a full cup to be able to pour out to our children.
I love that. I love that we can't pour from an empty cup. And that applies to a lot, but it definitely applies to parenting. So many parents, outside of, our kids go off to school, our mind is still with them. Well, I don't have kids, but I know from my mom that a lot of times her mind was still with us, even though she had her other duties, her job, things to carry out. And so just being able to make sure that we have a full cup that we're pouring from. I want to do this. So if you're listening on Facebook right now, or if you're on YouTube, go ahead and share this link with a friend. Or if you're watching the replay and you found something helpful for a parent that's in your life, or someone who is a legal guardian for a child, that's helping care for a child that's about to go back to school, just listen to these tips to help prepare yourself mentally and emotionally, and help set that child up for success beyond school supplies and making sure they have the right clothes, the things that they need for survival in the classroom, but also set them up so that they can, not only survive, but thrive in the school setting. Because it's so much when you think about it, for a child that's been at home all summer and maybe have a few siblings, but to go into a classroom with a lot of other kids, like, that can be stressful, especially for those that may be an introvert like I am. But I try to step out sometimes and think about what kids are actually going through. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you, in your with your expertise as a therapist, what are some things that parents could be on the lookout for in their child's behavior or their moods that could just kind of signal that they may be having issues adjusting? Because many times they're going into a new classroom, or if they're going to a new school, what are some things that parents can be on the lookout for, just to kind of help bring their awareness up to just
Right.
ensure that their child is adjusting well?
Right. So some things that parents may want to start out with, just in general, is a schedule. Schedules are lifesavers. That creates a sense of safety and security for their kids. It also cures anxiety. If you kind of know what's coming next, that will that fear of the unknown. And so parents may want to do that. Another thing they may want to try to start off, because see, you got to have a starting point to kind of gauge what to look for. So I advise a lot of my parents to have an emotions chart. You can, and this is an activity that parents can do with their kids, something they can hang on the refrigerator or in the kids' room. You can either do it like a wheel with different faces, emotions on it, and let them gauge every day, out the door. So how you feeling this morning? They can just either put a sticker on it or point at it or whatever to help the parent gauge like where they are. And even, returning home. Okay, where are you today? This also teaches the child about what emotion, because what we don't realize is that a lot of kids just don't know, like, okay, we may be feeling some kind of way. I hear that all the time. I say, okay, well, let's kind of gauge where you are in that feeling. And so we have to identify the feelings for them so they can tell you, oh, well, mom, I'm feeling sad today. They'll understand what that feeling is. And then once you see some deviation from that, so say some things to look out for is their appetite may decrease, right? So they're not eating as much, or they're not sleeping as much, or maybe they're oversleeping, because that could be a sign of depression if they oversleeping. And so those are some things to look out for. You can also just moodiness, if they're swinging. So just in general, kids are pretty stable. And I have a lot of parents that will say things like, well, it's puberty, or especially with the young ladies that, they say, oh, well, she's starting her cycle. That has nothing really to do with their mood if it's swinging back and forth. And I'm not saying like, okay, if it's that, maybe that time of month or something like that. But if it's constantly going, like either they're really, really high or they're really, really low, that's a swinging. And so when you see that, that's a sign for concern. If they don't like going to school, you know, or they get sad when it's time to go. You having conversations, and they're chipper, and then their moods just kind of go down. um But children in generally should love to go to school. They should love to learn. And so those are some signs to let you know, okay, something doesn't seem right with my child, and they may not be getting what they need at school.
Awesome. I love it. That was a really good list. A really good list. If you're listening and you have questions for Dana, who is a licensed professional counselor and registered play therapist, if you have questions for her, go ahead and pop them in the chat and we'll make sure they get answered. But also do me a favor and share this stream with a friend or to a group that you're in on social media that may be about parenting and parenting skills, or as Dana said, reparenting. I see our Minthia Smith out here, one of my classmates from high school. She says, I agree. I agree. Thank you for tuning in, Arminthia. And so one of the things I want to talk to you about when we were in the green room earlier, Dana, you talked about kind of the mental health crisis that our children are in coming out of COVID. I want you to talk a little bit about coming out of the pandemic. I want you to talk a little bit about that mental health crisis, what caused it, and what do parents need to be on the lookout for and proper steps to take if they're noticing some things, certain behaviors with their kids.
Yes, and so the kids are going through a mental health crisis at this time. They just started a new suicide hotline because there are so many people, and children and teens that are thinking about suicide, and so. Some things that parents may want to do is to pay attention again to their child's behavior. A lot of times the children will say that they're okay, but you can kind of tell their mood. If they're in generally just sad, again, sleeping all the time, that is a sign that there may be some depression there. And so you want to make sure that you're paying close attention to their behavior and what they're saying to themselves. And so some other things that you can be on the lookout for in regards to the crisis friendships. You know, the climate has been really toxic here since COVID, and a lot of things have come to light. About bullying. Bullying is a huge thing, especially like cyberbullying. And so you want to check their content. What are the kids in the group saying to them? And it sounds like sarcasm a lot of times, but it's bullying. And there's a clear line. And so you just want to make sure that you're keeping up with their social media, what's kind of going on with them and their friends, and then their behavior.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I wanted to just kind of go back into that bullying discussion. When you said that sometimes it sounds, I don't know, we it could be condescending, an adult can pick up on it. But
Mhm.
what are some of the things that, some of your clients are coming in that, because it can be passive aggressive as well.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
what are just some good ways to just kind of recognize that bullying could be happening with your child?
Right. So again, looking at their behavior, conversations between friends where, it almost seems like constructive criticism, but it's really, oh, that's ugly. Like that's not nice. It's a way you can say things, right? And you'll have kids that'll do that, and so you have to really pay attention to what they're saying, because again it sounds condescending, but it's really just right out mean. A lot of mean girls, they do it in groups, and you can just go in. I've seen a lot of clients come in and they'll have a chat, and it's like a lot of them, and they're just kind of going back and forth. And I don't know, there's this culture of just meanness that just it started to bubble up really bad across the internet. And so a lot of times one child, or your child may be isolated. And so, okay, so we're going to talk bad to you and we're going to isolate you. So we're not going to hang out with you. And that's an indication as well. So are they still with the same friends? Do they have new friends? And what does that look like as well? And so again, you have to really pay attention to that friend group. A lot of times, like when I was a younger, as well as like my daughters, the friends would come over and you got to meet the friends. But a lot of times when they're doing all this cyber stuff, we don't get to know the children. So you want to know your kids' friends and you want to know what they're doing as well.
That's really good feedback. That's really good feedback. I was just reminded of, I watched something on Tamron Hall show yesterday, and it was a parent with her child. And I think the behaviors had become, parent made the decision that the child would be no longer involved in group chats, or like in group me's, or in group Facebook chats, or anything that involved more than one person, or more than, a couple of people. And that seemed to have been better for the child's, I guess, interaction, mental health, or whatever. Have you seen any parents that you work with having to do this? And I guess too as well, I'm just thinking about this group dynamic where things can kind of go left really quickly.
Yes, I see it all the time. Where, because we have to monitor regardless. We need to be monitoring how much time the kids are spending on their devices, especially when we're looking at groups. Because there is, there a lot of times it's anonymous, right? In the different chats, sometimes the kids don't even know the kids. And so there is that boldness that kind of rises up and they feel like they can just say anything. And so you just want to be cautious about what types of groups, right? I went to a conference not too long ago and it was just talking about all the different chat rooms and backdoor and it was appalling. I was like, I didn't know that there were so many different outlets for kids. And then some of them they just don't make any sense, like Snapchat. So you can take a picture and it disappears, but it really doesn't disappear. Giving them some type of false security, right? And so you just want to make sure you know what your child is doing, who your child is talking to. But I've had several parents that had to pull the electronics and definitely pull the groups.
Yeah, and it's, I applaud parents who take those steps, because your child really not gonna really like you for a while afterwards. So I applaud parents who are actually being parents and moving beyond, like, this child's best friend, and really taking on that parental role and taking that very seriously. Because one of the things I realized, like when you're in a group, even if that's face to face, it's one thing if somebody says something to you mean one on one and they come back and apologize to you.
Right.
Well, when something's happened to you in a group, on social media, in a group chat, physically face to face, it's like, yeah, they can come apologize, but it's also the humiliation that
Hmm.
goes along with it that does impact our self esteem when everybody else is seeing that thing play out. So I really thank you for that. So I wanted to ask you one other question.
Okay.
And it's really just a chance for you to just, anything that's bubbling up for you. But what are some of the things that we may not have talked about that you feel like parents need to think about, as we're fastly approaching school, right? What do
Right.
they need to be thinking about to prepare themselves, as well as if they're co-parenting or in their children, for school this fall?
Yeah, so some things that, I think that parents should be aware of is the culture into their where they're sitting their kids. We've kind of dealt with a lot of racism and things of that nature. And so it just kind of depends on your area. But there is just a meanness that has kind of taken over, not only just on social media, but also in person. And so you want to be aware of the culture. And just because I say a lot of times, have a good relationship with your child so that you will know kind of what's going on with them. Because a lot of times, if you have a teacher and she's overworked and she got too many kids, a lot of times teachers don't see I've also had instances where it seems like the teacher was scared of the kids too. And these are, when we're getting into high school. Um, and so, parents just need to be mindful of the anxiety that exists when the kids have to go back in person. Um, and so, one way to kind of deter from that is to have open dialogue with them about their day. You parents may want to do a technique that it's kind of counseling technique, but just in general, children want to be seen and heard. That's it. That you can really develop a good relationship with your child if they're seen and if they're heard. And so some things that I encourage parents to do is to do the serve and return, and really listen to what their children are saying to them. And so what they may want to do is just give it back to them. So you may have a child and say, hey, this happened at school today. And so instead of, your normal response, so you're saying that happened at school today? And they'll be like, yeah, that's, I'm seen and I'm heard. Or they'll say, no, that's not what I meant. And that way you're getting an understanding of where they are. You want to be able to understand where they're coming from, and not take it lightly. I know a lot of times, we don't like to go up to the schoolhouse, but advocacy is needed. Um, and I'm a big advocate for my children. Advocacy is needed because, again, these are some systematic things that are going on, and some kids will get lost in the shuffle if we don't stand up for them. They need their parents. Now, I ain't not talking go up there and do nothing wrong, right? I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. Miss Dana didn't say that, right? Don't do that. But if you see something that continues to progress, document it. Document what your child is saying, and then schedule a meeting with the teacher. If don't nothing get done, then you need to schedule a meeting with the principal. And once you have your documentation and things of that nature, you want to make sure that you're following through, so that you can make sure that your child's getting the best education that they can.
Oh, I love it. I love it, Dana. I think I could talk to you all evening, but we're not going to do that. But
Okay.
to the parents that are on the live stream, you can go back and listen to this. If you missed the first half, I see a lot of people who've joined since we first started. Go back and check this out. And if you feel like you need to talk to a professional counselor, Dana is here and she shared her contact information. And we will also put this in the caption of this video after the live stream has ended. And so tonight, just to remind you, we've been talking about preparing your kids socially and emotionally for school. And Dana has talked about some things that are beyond school supplies, that are beyond school clothes, but thinking about our children socially and emotionally. Arminthia, thank you. She says, thank you to us both. Thank you for tuning in. She has a beautiful daughter that I have watched grow up on Facebook. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing some of her back to school pictures. But I want to just lift up a few things that Dana has shared with us that I have just found very helpful. Making a schedule for your kids so that they know what's coming up. That helps give them some sense of structure. Making an emotions chart, having a chart or something that's maybe not in words, but pictures that they can point to say how they're feeling if they're not able to verbalize. So that's something I see that would be very helpful for your kids, as well as thinking about when your child offers up something, say something about their day, toss it back to them and give them a chance to affirm or add their emotions behind that so that they know mommy or daddy is listening to them, because she says children want to be seen and heard. And so if you can focus on that, you can help your child begin to develop some very good communication skills, but also work on that parent child relationship, and then also be an advocate for your child. And so what she's saying is that if you're seeing something that's happening at school, making sure that you're able to be a presence and be an advocate for your child. Because if you really think about it, your one child many times is in a room with 10 or 15 or more other children in a sea of a school, and many of them have been at home in isolation. And so sometimes we just need to give that extra attention so that our kids can definitely just be successful. Dana, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I want again for you to tell our listeners about Purdue Counseling and Consulting and how they can get in contact with you.
Yes, Purdue Counseling Consulting are actually opening up a new office in Hoover. Yes, at the Park building. And so, but you can give me a call at 205-675-0529. We're taking clients. We're going to be, I have an intern, so we're going to get our group started. There are great things coming. Again, that number is 205-675-0529.
Awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you tonight. Facebook, go ahead and share this stream or go back and listen to this conversation. It's also on YouTube Live at the moment. It's also streaming on the church's Facebook page, the Firm Foundation Church, as well as the church's YouTube channel, the Firm Foundation Church. But look it up. We'll be back next month. And thank everybody for tuning in to us. And we pray that you have a great evening and that you're setting your kids up to thrive this school year by being an emotionally supportive parent as they begin this school year. We'll see you later.